Welcome to Eye on Foxborough. I'm Karen Guregian. Today, I'm pleased to have MassLive colleague and award-winning sports columnist Matt Vautour with me. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Matt has always busy, but in the past week, he's written a couple of interesting Belichick columns. One, he kind of ranked where he believes Belichick might be coaching next. And the other one, he took him to task for being petty. Uh, but let's start with the Belichick destinations. Matt listed 10 places and he put them in certain categories. Number 10 through 8, he said that Carolina, the New York Jets, and Cleveland are on the category of almost certainly won't be. That's not where he's going. He listed long shots as being New Orleans, Jackson, and Jacksonville. He had fun long shots being the U.S. Naval Academy. I love that one. Las Vegas. And then he zeroed in on realistic possibilities. Philadelphia, the New York Giants, and Dallas being tops on his list. Did you have fun doing that, Matt?
I do. I am by nature my I drive my wife crazy sometimes because I like to rank things and I do like to make these sort of lists. And so this is some I sometimes use the fact that I can as an outlet to when I write these things down. So I do think of things that way. What's my favorite ballpark I've ever been to? What's my what's the best cheesesteak in Massachusetts, et cetera. So that is the way my brain works, and so organizing them certainly makes sense that way. And I'll be honest, like I think the Naval Academy is the one that popped into my head as like, wouldn't it be funny? Like what would Bill ever do if the Naval Academy called and offered? And obviously there's a set of circumstances that would have to play for that job even to be open. But that kind of sparked me into doing the rest of the list.
Well, of course, lists like this promote debate. Um, I like your realistic possibilities. I might have flipped, I might have moved Philadelphia ahead of Dallas, except with a week passing now. Philadelphia's 5-2. Dallas keeps losing. They're 3-4, and the Giants, I believe, are now 2-6. So I think you have the order pretty well down the bottom.
I think Giants and Dallas could be a coin flip. The reason that Philly was third is because they might take the longest to open.
Hmm.
It literally might come down to the fact that they might be in the first round of the playoffs and be later in their coaching search process than the others. And if they're in the first round of the playoffs, A, can you still fire them in good conscience, or B, if they win a game, and who knows at that point, that division is that division is strange, and yeah, Philly could want to get rid of him and not feel in good conscience like they can.
Well, um, my feeling on that is obviously I think Belichick is tight with Jeffrey Lurie,
Right.
the Eagles owner. And like you said, they might get to the playoffs, but I think how they do in the playoffs will dictate a lot of what happens. And again, I, it wouldn't surprise me if Lori has already tipped Belichick off to, well, if such and such happens, you know, we're going to be calling you, and keep that in mind. If the Giants and Cowboys already start pursuing you, when those teams are done. So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, though. Um, I might add one more to the list, though. And
Okay.
um, you did this last week, uh, but now I look at the Cincinnati Bengals being 3-5 and having to win. I don't know.
That's a good call. I looked at them. I actually like afterward. I made my list, and then I scrolled through every coach's hot seat list that existed on the internet, and to try to make sure I wasn't forgetting somebody obvious. And I thought about the Bengals. I went back and forth. I'm like, can they really? Like Zach Taylor was like he was like supposed to be like a genius, and the guy you wanted his assistants like 2 years ago, and now would they really be ready to fire him? And yeah, you're right. And but that could be a spot, be kind of a great situation to land in if you're Belichick. And it's pushed more in that direction now, and so
Yeah,
that could happen.
uh, again, he's a big historian. Uh, uh, Paul Brown, the whole deal. Plus, as you said, he has a ready-made quarterback
Right.
who's pretty darn good, and he doesn't have to worry about that. Whereas New York, he has to worry about quarterback. Not so much Dallas, not so much Philadelphia, but of the lot, I would put Joe Burrow at the top of the
For
list
sure. For sure, yes.
in terms of really great quarterbacks um, to work with. And I think Burrow is kind of in the style of quarterback that Belichick. I don't think Belichick is the biggest fan of these mobile quarterbacks who run around and run around and run around. I think he.
Certainly never really used one. The only thing that make you think he'd even likes him a little bit is that he brought Doug Flutie on late in his career. But no, you're right. It's a strange he's definitely prefers the pocket guy that makes I think more sense to him from a risk adverse standpoint.
Do you think that and perhaps like not getting the Atlanta job and not getting any jobs after he was fired, do you think the time away now has helped him or helped boost the number of teams that might come after him?
Um, I don't. It's a good question, and I don't know the answer. If teams look at it and say, well, the guys that did get hired that were less experienced, Gerard Mayo being one of them, have not succeeded. Do you want to go back to a trusted old hand, and in this case, a very old hand that, like, from a football standpoint, that probably helps him a little bit. I think I think it's more that the type of job that's likely to open is the type of job that Belichick that is likely to appeal more to him and that he's likely to appeal more to. And I think some of it's like Jerry Jones is an old school guy and likes and kind of I think Jerry Jones wishes things were more like they used to be.
Mm.
Belichick fits that. And I think that's true in New York. I think that's true in Philadelphia too. It if you were to decide to get rid of Zach Taylor now as the Browns, I think I think he's definitely if you're changing from Zach Taylor, you want to make a pretty wide swing, and I think Belichick would fit that too. So I think the jobs that are open are more likely to fit him than maybe the ones that were open a year ago.
In terms of his image, as I said, you took him to task uh, for being kind of a petty old goat. It's clear he's settling old scores. Um, it's rubbed some people the wrong way, understandably. I mean, were you surprised at all that this is kind of, I mean, he's on every talk show, and again, when he talks football, that's one thing. When he's settling scores, that's another thing entirely.
So I'm not surprised. I'm not at all surprised that he is. I actually wrote a column last year saying he should not go back to coaching. He should stay. He should go on television. He'd be good at it, and it would be a great way for him to stay in football for a longer time and make use of all of this knowledge that's in his head. Um, I don't know that I thought that he would be as controversial or as willing to go after people as he is. No, no, and I think maybe he would make sense that he'd have done that in a scenario where if he was never planning on getting back into coaching. Right now he's burning some bridges whether he realizes it or not, and who knows exactly how that's playing with some of the other owners. Like if you're Wellington Mara or the Mara family, and you see him taking shots subtly at what's followed him in the with the Patriots, do you look at it and say, well, if you know, if when he's done with the Giants, he might be taking these shots at us somewhere down the line. I don't know if billionaires are weird people by comparison that I clearly don't relate to, but um, I think some of it is I think some of it's just been unnecessary, and like to go after Mayo the way he did. Now he may look at Mayo the same way he looks at Mangini in some ways, that taking that job was some disloyalty. But at the same time, to come out and say that the Patriots' run game has the exact same players, if you don't include, Barmore, Peppers, Bentley, some of it was just disingenuous, and it looked. I just thought I think it looked petty, and I think I think it was kind of representative of what he's been doing in ways that are kind of just unnecessary. He can be better than that.
Well, he might think it, well, I look at it as self-serving too. Look at, I had this great team with the best run defense and blah, 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 and look what they've done to it kind of thing. Um, yeah,
But who's
I'm,
he fooling?
huh?
I mean, but who's he really fooling
Yeah,
in
you're
that?
right. You're right. Although I do have this feeling though that Arthur Blank is probably thanking his lucky stars he didn't pick Bill. you know I don't know, maybe not, we'll see. But again, there's no question, he's tough to put up with in a lot of ways. I still believe he can coach, so it's just a matter of who wants to put up with that persona, and who wants to basically not only get Bill but his entourage of coaches, you
Right.
know, that he's going to want to have come with him.
Well, it's
So,
interesting too. If you were Jerry Jones or you're John Mara at this point, you could or Jeffrey Lurie, you've got to if you're going to take on Bill, he can't just bring his buddies now. This can't be just people he's comfortable with. He has to. You have to show that he's going to show that he's going to bring a coaching staff in that's more than his friends and his kids. That he's got something that not only helps you create the right team in 2025, 2026, but also gives you some succession options somewhere down the line, so you're not stripping it all the way down again in 2 years.
yeah, Matt, I'm not sure that Belichick would present that. I really don't.
Oh, for sure.
I
That
think
would
he
be a
thinks
drawback.
I think he says, "Look at my rings. I'll have the coaches I want. I'll get the players I want, and you just have to trust me that, you know, I'll bring the next trophy to the organization."
It's
I
it's
think
it's
I
it's
mean, he has that kind of arrogance.
it's an interesting question for them because you might love Billy Joel, but you want him Billy Joel from 1983 or 1979. You don't want necessarily Billy Joel from right now. You don't want his the new stuff. So is Bill still capable of creating great new stuff? I don't
Hmm.
know.
I would say as long as he's not picking the groceries.
No, that's a fair thing. I mean, he made he's made some mistakes on free agents. He made some mistakes on draft, and everybody does, but they're magnified because when Brady left, he wasn't even really able to make it palatable. And when you think about that, when Brady left, and you think about the how late they were getting to Cam Newton, and it's they had no real quarterback plan until so much later in there. And Cam, they brought a Cam Newton that was not the version of himself that was great before. And how can you be a guy that you look at and say this guy understands the totality of what you need in a football team and have not had any real plan on what was going to be your post Brady quarterback thing when everybody in existence saw the likelihood of Brady leaving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same could be said for a post Josh McDaniels plan
Sure.
because again, he knew the world knew Josh wanted to be a head coach again and they were going to lose him. But you draft a rookie quarterback, you have Josh for 1 year, he does well, and then you replace him with a defensive coach. Again, it's
Yeah.
just a bit mind-boggling, how Belichick went about his business post Brady, but anyway, let's move on to the current Patriots,
Sure.
the 2-6 Patriots, uh, who beat the Jets to stop a 6-game losing streak. Where do you see this team going, or where should they want to go the rest of the year?
Well, it's interesting because they beat the Jets on Sunday, which was a something for this team. Every win's going to be something to be excited about. And then traded Josh Uche on Monday, which lets you know, okay, this win was great, but we're not positioning ourselves that the priority is creating a lot of those wins. And I think that's probably right, but if you're going to trade Josh Uche, then there's no reason not to be playing Javon Baker. There's no reason not to be putting every guy in there that you want to develop, the guys that you think will be decent or productive or important to your team in 25 and 26. They should all be out there now, and you want to have the best offensive line you can in front of Drake May, and get everybody that's 27 and younger on the field as much as you can to help get them to the best version of themselves that they can be and go from there. Because if you wanted to trade Jonathan Jones, who's he's a good player and a good leader and really kind of your classic Patriots success story, that makes sense right now. If you wanted to trade Dietrich Wise, um, right now that makes sense. If somebody was worried about their quarterback situation and you wanted to trade Jacoby Brissett, I think there's logic to that too. But I think right now, if you're saying you're rebuilding. If you're trading, if you're a seller, then there's no reason to wait on getting some of those other guys onto the field.
I agree with all of that. Two things. I think the veteran players in the locker room are very aware of the youth movement. I think that's one of the reasons KJ Osborne wants out because he was basically not playing so that they could play Jalen Polk and the younger receivers. And he kind of sees the writing on the wall. So I think that is their plan. They want to see what they have, basically. In terms of trading off parts, I agree. Although everyone's in the mix for that, or the veterans, but I don't want to just trade John Jones for a seventh round
No,
draft
I
pick.
agree with that. I agree with that.
I don't want to just sweep all the veterans away and really get nothing in return. That's not
You
the
could trade
point.
KJ Osborne for a seventh round draft pick, and I agree
Yeah.
absolutely. But I
But
think you're right on that.
somebody who's like the fabric of your team and one of the lone remnants of championships, John Jones, if you're going to dump him for a seventh rounder, that to me That's bad news.
No, there are things guys around Jonathan Jones can learn from for sure. And I think you're right on that. I think market value is important, and I do think it's smart to get that. But I think KJ Osborne's a perfect example. There's no you're not KJ Osborne is not part of KJ Osborne's never going to play a playoff game with the Patriots. Javon Baker might. And so at this point, I'm all set with Baker. Uh, Jonathan Jones is the guy people you look at can be the adult in the room, can be the role model, can be the guy that shows you how to be a pro. I'm not sure Osborne is that guy. And so if you can get like fifth for Jonathan Jones, you listen. If you get a fourth, you take it immediately.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're getting that, but I think there's logic to trying to go find to see what the best you can get for any of those guys are.
Problem is he's the guy who might have the most value when you talk about like a prime position or premier position. It's like pass rusher, hello Uche,
Right.
back, hello John Jones, and you know he has value. He can play outside, inside. He can play safety. I mean, he would be a good pickup for any contending team. You know, whether and that's not necessarily to come in and start. You know, one of your starters gets hurt down the stretch, you're not really hurt all that much plugging John Jones
Right.
in wherever in the defensive backfield. So, and again, that to me is value. And if they're just going to, hey, Chiefs, you can have John Jones for a seventh round pick, that to me would not, it would not be prudent.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think you're right. I think you're right on that one. I think not only that, I think it's important if you're Elliot Wolf to establish a little bit that you have a feel for what market value is. I think that's sending the right message to your team and sending the right message to the league that you're not somebody that can just go get rated.
yeah. I mean, before Uche was traded, I had talked to an executive, somebody who does these deals for another, you know, another NFL team, just to get a gauge on Uche's value. And he said, yeah, they're looking for a fifth round pick. He goes, but I think the best they can do is sixth round. I mean, and that was his assessment, you know, given the fact, you know, Uche uh, wasn't an every down player. He just came on in pass rush situations. And, you know, he had one good year and hasn't done anything since, kind of thing. And add in the fact he's on the, you know, he has a 1 year deal. So, you know, all of those
Tough though
things.
it's tough though with the Chiefs because the sixth round pick for the Chiefs is almost a seventh round pick. Given
Correct.
how
Right.
reliable they are all the time.
Right. But, you know, that might have been something where again they weren't going to get anything anywhere else. So
Yeah, very possible.
um but anyway, let's end our discussion talking about Drake May. uh Prior to him leaving with a concussion early in the second quarter of Sunday's game, what were your impressions over the 2.5 games that you witnessed?
I thought he was really promising. I thought both I liked both the way he carried himself and the things that he did. He had a couple of interceptions in that first game, and I thought he made better decisions after that. I like I like the fact that he can run, but it never struck me like, oh, he's ready to run instantly. Like that he never seemed like a quick panicker, which is really something you like in a quarterback in all scenarios, whether it's throwing the ball away, whether it's running. He you could kind of see progress, and that felt like that had a possibility. Like you and I as we're watching games are looking for the story and that sort of thing. And I was watching early in that game and thought this might be really fun to talk to him about what it means to play well against Aaron Rodgers, who Aaron Rodgers means something to him in terms of his, who he is as a, like, he idolized Aaron Rodgers at one point, and so that struck me like we were kind of headed for that before the injury.
You don't hold
Um,
that against him?
I do, but I'm assuming this is a football thing.
Uh,
Um, but I thought that had kind of a fun story potential, and I like where he's going. He still has some development or developing to do, and I think that stuff is important, and I think right now we're all looking at a little bit squinting and trying to superimpose on him what the rest of that development might turn into. And I'm always a little bit concerned because we all did. We all saw Mac Jones and thought, boy, well, if he's doing this now, he's going to do, B, C, D, and E down the line, and he never really got past B. And so I think May's capacity for improvement is higher. I think his athletic skill set is clearly much better. Um, but generally, I think there's a lot to like there, and I'm certainly more enthusiastic about going to Foxborough on Sunday because of what might happen and feeling like this is the ground floor of something.
yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing is um, obviously he shows the promise, he shows the skill set that was advertised, but specifically, he has gotten better in every appearance, and I think that's significant. And I agree with you that he was rather judicious when he took off on his runs. I think uh, getting hurt against the Jets, he was in the process of sliding. So, he was doing the right thing. He just didn't get down quite fast enough on that particular play. But I don't think for any second that, he's out there, just going to run, 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 run. I mean, as we've seen, Patrick Mahomes learned you can't do that. Josh Allen, to a degree, has learned, you know, not only can't you just run every play, but you can't be like a running back and try and bulldoze people over. You're the quarterback. So,
It's a little like
um,
mid-career Donovan McNabb, who was a very good runner early on and became and really evolved into a really good passer at points in his career that was he was a good passer and a smart runner as opposed to as much as he was more likely to take off early on. The thing I'm curious with Drake too is I think his development and Alex Van Pelt's development and Gerard Mayo's development are all interestingly tied to one another. We like to, with coaches, make instant judgments and then holds to them. I think both of those guys are developing too, and how they develop is interesting because it'll matter how they choose to use Drake May, how they choose to teach Drake May, and how they kind of the approaches they take to bring him from where he is to the next one. Because as we talked about, Bill Belichick did a lousy job of developing Max Jones. Yeah, Max Jones, Mac Jones. I get Bruins on the brain. Max Jones and Mac Jones. Um, but how he chose to make those decisions, and so I think so much of what the Patriots do in terms of coaching staff, in terms of scheme, really needs to be about not just especially this year, like we talked about. It's not just what's happening Sunday, but what's best creates the next best thing for Drake May. And I think they have to be smart about that. And it's really tough when you think about it to have a first year quarterback, a first year head coach, a first year
play
general
caller,
manager more or less,
or
and
the
first year
GM.
play caller, yeah, all happening at the same time because they're all figuring themselves out while figuring out how to be best for each other.
Hmm. Was that a wise call from ownership to uh, replace Belichick with all of these first year types?
Was it? I don't know that I don't know that it was wise. My question would be, no, no, I don't think it was wise. I actually thought they should. I wrote at the time. I thought they should have gone through a true coaching
Process.
search process to see what else was out there. Not only, because at least at that point, if you end up hiring Gerard, you can say that he was the best of a group. He was the best that you saw out there, and there are things that you saw that seemed better than guys who had done it before. And at the same time, you might hear some ideas that are valuable that you pass along to Gerard once the process is over, and use that. Should they have so? Should there be some more? I think they more experienced people in there. I think they hoped that McAdoo would be that guy, and maybe he is. I don't know. It's an interesting challenge for them right now. Was I don't the unknown is what was the other option? As if they didn't get these guys, who would have come? Who wanted this? Who would have taken it? My instinct is they probably could have had a more experienced group in there. Um, so no, I don't know that it was. I don't know that it was wise. I suppose ownership is learning at the same way that everybody else is. Ownership is Kraft was either incredibly wise or incredibly lucky with Bill Belichick.
Mhm.
And like he either really saw something that was really valuable or the guy he liked turned out to be amazing. And to think that to take the same sort of gut feeling thing happening again, I think was risky. It'll be interesting over the run for Mayo whether or not it turns out okay.
Yeah, I think it's obvious based on what Robert Kraft has said himself that and what was written into Gerard Mayo's contract that he was going to be the successor to Bill Belichick. My feeling is that the timing came a little quicker because I think Robert Kraft, as much as his relationship with Belichick wasn't great, I think his idea or his approach was, okay, Bill will get the record, Don Shula's record, coaching record. He can walk off into the sunset, being the, greatest coach of all time, most wins. And that was going to take at least another 2 years, perhaps.
Right.
And Gerard could further learn and further have connections, acquire
Right.
connections. It didn't happen. The process, I believe, was sped up. And so Gerard had to rely on Elliott to basically put in the offensive staff because they're mostly Elliott connections,
Right.
Van Pelt, etc., McAdoo, etc. Uh, and they just figured too that, Gerard would have an eye on the defense, so that's how it was going to work. But it hasn't quite worked out perfectly just yet. And it looks like it's going to take some time again for them to all learn, for them to all get on the same page. But, and in Elliott's case, bring in personnel that's a huge upgrade over what they currently have.
It's we'll learn a lot about their capacity for improvement in those jobs based on how the off season goes next year. Do they, are they decisive enough to make significant changes and not just think, well, we'll figure it out in whether it's in members of the coaching staff, whether the way they approach personnel, with the way they approach the draft, or at the same time, are they not overreacting to like will they figure out what didn't work because the process didn't work, or what didn't work just because they made a mistake? And those are not entirely the same sort of thing. It'll be really fascinating to see just how valuable that 1 year of experience can become.
You mean like both signing and drafting right tackles when you need a left tackle, that kind of thing.
Yes. Label your hands what with the left and right so they can figure
Or
that
just
out.
thinking that, it'll take care of, oh, sure, you can just move them over, it'll be great. Nope, that didn't quite work.
It's kind
So,
of like if you took a former defensive coordinator and made him an offensive coordinator.
yeah, that's kind of like that, isn't it? Well, Elliot was on Bill's staff. So, well, anyway, Matt, thank you for spending the time.
No problem at all.
And I enjoyed your top 10 places for Belichick to land. And we'll see if you hit it on the dartboard when that pass.
It's going to be the Bengals now, just because that was the one I left off.
Well, I brought it up, so
There you
okay,
go. There you go. All right.
guys. Teamwork.
Exactly.
Called teamwork.
Exactly.
Take care, Matt.
Take it
Thanks.
easy. Thanks.